Hey there, South by Southwest. Welcome. I'm excited for this discussion we're going to have. We're going to talk about blockchain, how Puerto Rico is a crypto capital for the Caribbean and many other places too. Today, we have a couple of esteemed guests. We have some crypto veterans along with us, as well as some young and hungry entrepreneurs here on the island. They're doing some pretty cool things with NFTs, and we're just going to have an all-around good discussion. So to not waste anyone's time, we're going to jump in. First off, I'm Brian Borgery. I work with Invest Puerto Rico. I'm a serial entrepreneur, normally working with tech companies, a lot of secure and decentralized hardware. Got into Bitcoin in 2011, spent it all in 2012, regretted it for a number of years, but happy to be here. We work as Invest Puerto Rico, helping attract investment and businesses to the island. And we'll get a little bit into the weeds on why blockchain has been a big driver of businesses and investment coming to the island over the years. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first two guests, Luke Stokes and Michael Turpin.
Thanks for having us.
There we go. Well,
Thanks,
welcome. They'll go into their backgrounds a little bit for you to understand, but we're really fortunate to have them with us to kind of help us understand why Puerto Rico really has what I think is one of the best ecosystems for blockchain, and shed some light on just the space in general, so we can all learn and grow together. So jumping in, Luke, give us a 2 to 3 minute intro, who you are and how you ended up in Puerto Rico.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. Yeah, my name is Luke Stokes. I'm currently the managing director for the Foundation for Interwallet Operability, working on a project just to make crypto easier for everybody. My background in programming, majored in computer science, ran a company for about 10 years, e-commerce company with a buddy of mine that was focusing on traditional payments and credit cards and things like that. Around 2013, my exposure to that got me some exposure to an alternate payment system known as Bitcoin. And it was actually January 2013, I got my first Bitcoin. I think I spent about $50 and I got 2.5 Bitcoin. So needless to say, I got very, very excited about the potential. All in 2013, I was promoting it and letting people know about it, starting local meetups. At the time, I lived in Nashville. And in 2018, I sold my business so I could focus full time on the cryptocurrency blockchain space, basically went all in and absolutely loved it. Around that same time, my wife and my 3 kids, we moved here to Puerto Rico. So we've been here a little over 2 years now, actually, and absolutely love it. Phenomenal place to be. And I'm just very, very excited to see. In the beginning, I was a little too early with all the excitement of crypto. It's going to change the world. It's going to be more disruptive than the internet. And the mathematics weren't quite there as far as the exponential growth coming. But I'm starting to see it now, and it's very, very exciting. So it was early a little bit, but now we're starting to see it, and the excitement is incredible. So I'm looking forward to talking about it today. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And one more thing to plug in. I think you've done a lot of work with DACs and DAOs, so decentralized autonomous communities, organizations, as well
Absolutely.
as the EOS blockchain, correct?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into all that. So I've been a block producer on the Steam blockchain, which is now the Hive blockchain. Was involved as a block producer with EOS DAC as one that launched the EOS blockchain. And the current project I'm working with now, the FIO protocol, is an EOS.io based blockchain. I have a lot of friends in the industry and all different types of blockchains. There's incredible innovation going on in the space. It's pretty exciting.
Awesome. Thanks. All right. Now we'll jump over to Michael Turpin, who sometimes is known as the godfather of crypto, especially here on the island of Puerto Rico. Take it away, Michael. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Brian.
And how you ended up here.
Yeah, that name was actually given to me by Ron Denuer from CNBC because I and my company Transform Group have worked on about 150 token sales. So we track the percentage of the coin market cap every year of what we've worked on, and excluding Bitcoin, because as I like to say, Satoshi didn't have a budget. We've now worked on 57% of the market cap. So I guess I can talk about 2 firsts. One of them is I was the first speaker on Bitcoin at South by Southwest. I started a group called Bit Angels in early 2013, and with David Johnston, who you may not know is now a Puerto Rican as well. He moved here a couple of weeks ago from Austin, Texas. But I did, again, speak at 2014, 15, and 16 at something called the Bit Angels meetup that we did. And we had all sorts of great people come in. Nathaniel Popper, he's the New York Times reporter who covers Bitcoin and blockchain. Pretty much right after he got the beat, he came to South by Southwest. I walked him around, introduced him to folks, and that is actually mentioned in his great book, Digital Gold, about really sort of being an early time in the industry. The other speaker later in that 2014 show was Fred Ehrsam from Coinbase, which is now doing $100 billion public offering. So things have definitely grown over the years. The other first that I have is I'm the first person from the crypto community to become a Puerto Rican resident and take advantage of Act 20 and Act 22, the tax programs, the tax decree programs. Act 22 is for individual investors. It's the only place in the world that Americans can pay zero tax to the IRS and zero tax to Puerto Rico if you fulfill certain conditions of residency, basically if you live here. and then Act 20 is available to anybody, Puerto Ricans, people from Japan. All you have to do is start a business here that's in software or services, and you pay 4% tax to Puerto Rico. And if you're an American, even if you're living on the mainland, nothing to the IRS. So the biggest user, I'd say, that is probably Microsoft. They have a huge operation down here that is under that decree. So it's a really wonderful place from a business perspective. Thank you, Invest Puerto Rico, for all the work you do in promoting that, including at South by Southwest. And as one tax advisor once said, you wouldn't go and take the tax break if you had to live in Siberia. So it's not just that people are down here for the tax breaks. They're down here for the lovely culture, the community, the weather. And this year is, the hottest I've ever seen in terms of between the pandemic and some of the tax increases on the mainland. I am literally entertaining new people moving here every week. I've never seen, a flood of great talent and great minds and great investors and entrepreneurs moving to the island. I thought it was big in 2018. If that was the triple, it's a flood now in 2021.
Yeah.
A good friend of mine says that you always want to live where other people vacation. And that is actually another reason why my wife and my kids, we absolutely love being here, because it is incredible people, incredible community. And then as well with the rainforests and the beach and everything else, it's a beautifully, beautiful island paradise.
Yeah. So I want to actually jump into this a little bit. I came down here just over 3 years ago with one of our tech startups, started another blockchain software development company on the island, sold one of our companies. But the biggest driver for me was the community. Again, a handful of people, including like Michael, had already been here for a couple of years by that point. But what I saw was, and what I still see even more today, is a unique fusion of entrepreneurs, hustlers, change makers, and just all around like smart people who are also a little crazy because maybe, well, they moved their whole family to an island, or they were already living here doing awesome things, which is also a huge aspect. Is just Puerto Rico's awesome. People are wonderful. They're nice. I love raising my kids here. We just had twins 2 weeks ago, so like that's awesome. And the community is just huge. I remember we lived in Guaynabo, just outside the city. We always live outside the city. One of the reasons, besides being a suburbanite, is I come into town and I come home every day and I start telling my wife about like 20 new opportunities or projects to collaborate on or new blockchains or whatever. She's like, you can't do all that. I'm like, I know, but I want to. So like, just for sanity's sake, I have to like stay out of town.
I feel the same way. I live in Caguas, which is in the suburbs as well, just like you, Brian. I've seen your beautiful place. And when I come in once a week for our Crypto Mondays, that we have a great community there. And it's one of those where there's always so much going on that I'm like happy to come back home and get back to work on things I have to focus on, because there's so many great opportunities.
Yeah, it's awesome. Actually, speaking of community, I'm going to switch things up a little bit. Let's bring on Jose from backstage. Let's bring Jose. Jose is actually in charge of blockchain Puerto Rico. Hey there. How's it going, Jose?
Hey guys, thank you for having me.
Just wanted to bring you up. We were just getting into, as you were listening, into why we came down to Puerto Rico. Now, you were born here, but you are an integral part to the community of blockchain here on the island. And I'd love if you can explain a little bit what you do and what you're focusing on in blockchain, and even how'd you get into it? Like, how'd you even find out about this mysterious thing called blockchain?
Let's take that by parts. First of all, thank you for having me, Brian, Luke, and Michael. It's a pleasure to see you all again. In in blockchain Puerto Rico, we are currently focusing on being this type of bridge. So we are working on getting things in Spanish. We are working on getting things to the people that need to listen to it and to hear about it so that they can take action upon the new knowledge that they have acquired. And aside from that, we host wonderful events, and we're always happy to go visit the Uncommon Entrepreneur events that are fantastic as well. So, yeah.
Awesome. So what I want to get into right now is, in the time that we've all been working on blockchain in Puerto Rico, how has the community and the ecosystem progressed, and what are you most excited about?
You mentioned earlier, I'm very, very passionate about decentralized autonomous communities, decentralized autonomous organizations. And for those who aren't familiar with that term, it's basically a group of people with a shared goal that use this blockchain technology, the transparency of it, the immutability of it, and the smart contract nature of it. And what I mean by that is you can take an action as a group of people and you absolutely know what the outcome is going to be with 100% certainty. And so, for example, you could take community funds, pool them together, and have a voting process for how those funds are going to be distributed to add value to that community. There's a lot of really interesting ideas, and I'm really looking forward to the technology getting to the point where it's easy enough for everyday people to use. I think 2 years ago, I was very excited about some of this stuff, but it was still just onboarding and dealing with these big, long, crazy addresses and stuff was very confusing for most people, especially if you're working with farmers or co-ops, something of that nature. And so I'm kind of trying to improve the technology. And I have a number of friends that are engaged in community projects where they're saying, okay, as soon as you're ready, let us know. I've got the people ready to go. You know, they're building the community from the grassroots and getting them prepared for this technology that's coming once it's easy enough for them to use. So I'm personally most excited about the blockchain and the cryptocurrencies being an empowering, enabling agent for small groups of people, whether it's, you know, a neighborhood and an HOA, whether it's a co-op farm, whether it's a business that you want to tokenize and have multiple participants engaged in. Those are the things that I think are going to be really disruptive because, again, you have that transparency, you have that ability for everyone to know exactly how the decision process is made, who gets to be elected as an admin or a custodian for that group of people, how the funds are going to be managed when you start pooling things together to do things bigger than just one individual. So I'm very excited about DAX and DAOs. I'm excited about the FIO protocol, what we're working on to make crypto easier and helping people that maybe aren't the most technical be able to understand how they can get involved in cryptocurrency and signing them up with their first kind of FIO handle, their first wallet address handle, so it's not as confusing for them. So I'm looking forward to how this can be used in Puerto Rico, how this can be used for those who may have a phone, but the idea of getting onboarded with cryptocurrency is still a little too scary. So just making it easier for everybody.
Yeah, so I've seen a lot of changes, obviously, because I moved here at the start of 2016. So I've definitely seen a lot of changes. There were two other people who moved here in 2016. They were both members of Bit Angels who called me up and said, how do I do this? In both cases, they were crypto traders. The first handful of people were basically crypto traders because a lot of the people heretofore had been traders as well, oil industry traders, stock market traders, hedge funds. And now it's really a lot more entrepreneurs and and digital fund managers, but also entrepreneurs coming down. And the typical person that I talk to now is an entrepreneur, and in many cases also there are people who are earlier in their careers who are saying, hey, I still got 15 years left on the decree program, and it's an investment in myself because I started this company and I want to go in and be able to compound my gains, and when I sell the company, I'll be able to redeploy that. And also, the way that the programs have evolved, I mean, people who come here really get involved in, putting all the people on the island to use. I'm on board of a Partnership for Modern Puerto Rico, which former Secretary of Economic Development, Alberto Baco, started. And what that does is it takes all the leading Act 20, Act 22 people and combines them in, kind of thought leadership groups and social events with all the people who've been kind of the multi-generational Boricua families who've been here for decades and who have run the traditional industries to sort of get to know each other and see what each other's businesses are about. And it's been very productive. there's tremendous, resources on this island, natural resources, people resources, and I think that we're just really at the dawn of being able to fully, take advantage of the synergies of those areas. I mean, one example, for example, is I'm an advisor. Transform Group. We have several divisions. We have an events division. We have a marketing and PR division. We have an advisory and strategy group. We spun off a technology group. And on the advisory side, which is where I spend most of my time, that and also with Transform Ventures, which I spun off as an investment group for my family office, I look to see when there's a great company that I can make an impact by sort of like tweaking their business model a little bit. And if possible, I'll move them to Puerto Rico. One of them, which Luke has met and a few other people have met when I brought them down initially, is a company called Carbano, which is developing an exchange and a token around carbon credits, and it will be the only one that actually meets the international Paris Accord standards. So those would be sort of the things I'm kind of currently excited about, and I'll leave it at that for the moment.
All right. So Jose, how have you seen the ecosystem change and grow, and what are you excited for in the near future?
Well, for starters, all of the fuzz, if we'll call it that, is mostly gone. We have real people working real projects, and that is the best part about it. There's actual things going on over here. And on my end, I'm a law student, and the work the OCC has done creating those interpretive letters are by far the most exciting thing, because I know that one of the hurdles that the crypto industry faces worldwide is banks discriminating against them, and not allowing them to have the types of financial services they need. So I'm happy to see things moving at the federal level, and I'm excited to see how things will develop on the island.
Aren't you a part of some initiatives or even leading some initiatives to maybe help submit legislation or at least comments on what the government can do here on the island to be more crypto friendly?
I'm currently meeting with a few people here and there, and we're having discussions about the real problems we're having, and currently we're trying to figure out what's the best project to lead the charge. But I'm currently organizing this legislative initiative, and there are senators and legislators that are interested in seriously considering these legislations. I know I've heard from a few.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we see worldwide. I mean, anyone who's watching this who has been a part of the blockchain world, and for those who aren't or haven't been, it's hard to legislate or do something when you don't understand something. So, and obviously blockchain is still relatively new. Yes, Bitcoin's been around for 12 years now, but the underlying technology and everything, it starts out small, it starts out slow. Technically, email in its simplest forms was around long before you got your AOL account or your Netscape account. And I know there was, after 2017's big spike, there's a lot of people who moved down here. Early 2018 was crazy. The events we had were just awesome, but tons of people. But as you said, the fuzz or whatever the hypesters, let's say, kind of have dwindled all around the world, not just here in Puerto Rico, but particularly here. And I've loved seeing over the last couple of years, just so many people heads down and building awesome things. Michael.
So I would like to reframe the statement about the buzz is gone. I would just say the standards are higher. Bitcoin is one thing, and obviously it's now a lot more acceptable from a corporate standpoint, particularly with Tesla putting $1.5 billion of their treasury into it. But with everything else, back in 2017-18, there were an awful lot of ICOs that came out with a half a plan and a 2-page white paper and really no idea how they were going to spend the money. And obviously there were some scams too. One thing now is that there's higher standards. The DeFi revolution, NFTs, right now you can't really get to market without audited code. And that's something that really, you didn't even have tokens back in the ICO days. You had sort of, you're raising millions of dollars to potentially build a new token. It came out a year later. And that was fine in the early days with Ethereum because there weren't any blockchains other than Bitcoin and a handful of proof of work blockchains. But these days the infrastructure is much stronger. So I think that the standards are higher. One thing also I'll say about just sort of Puerto Rico and its opportunity, I think that we are not quite to the tail end of the bubble here. If we get over $100,000 Bitcoin, we may see some of that behavior again. But I think with higher standards, on the government side, I did have someone from the Puerto Rico government speak at, I think it was the third Coin Agenda of the Caribbean. This year, we're going to be having the fifth one. It's usually been in the spring, but because of COVID this year, we're going to be moving it to the start of December, the week right after the ending of Art Basel in Miami. So we get a lot of people who are down there for the NFTs around Art Basel. And they'll hop on a plane and come down and see beautiful Puerto Rico and see the Coin Agenda. Hopefully, we're still in a bull market by then. I think we will be. Usually, it lasts the entire year or the year after the halving. But when we had Pedro Piquer from the Department of Economic Development speaking, and he's still in office. He was talking about the committees that they had together to study the Wyoming initiative that has really turned Wyoming into a destination for companies from other states to go to, because they will say, we will go and say, if you follow this, this, and that, we will declare that you're a utility token or that you have sufficient decentralization. And we will say in our state that you meet our securities rules. And so far, the SEC has not gone and said, well, Wyoming's not good enough. And people have moved there in droves. People are moving to Miami in droves, and they don't even have clarity in Florida. They simply have the mayor saying, I'm going to take Bitcoin, and I want to be a blockchain city. We have the opportunity to be a much better Wyoming, because if you go to Wyoming and you do a token sale there with the blessing under the 70 laws that they passed that Caitlin Long was really the champion of, you still have to pay 21% tax. Congratulations, you're not a security. Now you're a product, and you have to pay 21% tax, which is about to go up to 28%. In Puerto Rico, it's still going to be 4% if you come here under Act 20 and 22. Actually, even just under Act 20. And so I think that there's much better. I mean, would you rather live in Cheyenne, Wyoming, or Dorado in Puerto Rico, or San Juan, or Fajardo, or any place else on this beautiful island? I think that that's something that's still a massive opportunity for us to take advantage of.
Absolutely. I'm excited for that. Yeah, all my LLCs are either in Wyoming or Puerto Rico, but I happen to live in Puerto Rico, not in Wyoming. So, but yeah, that you're absolutely right on that front. And an example of that, even early on, although governments move slow in general, I think one of our companies was the first or second to have our utility token written into our tax decree by name, to be treated as software sales and very clearly outlined. Obviously, it depends on how you treat it in actuality, but how we had it mapped out and everything, we had the blessing of the government, so to speak, and written into our tax decree a utility token. So
no, I was going to say in Puerto Rico, they do treat blockchain as software as a service. The only lack of clarity is on initial offerings, and that could be solved with the stroke of a pen. And you would literally get even more people down here than there already are coming.
Sure. Any other projects or initiatives on the island that either we're a part of or that we've heard about that we're excited about? And then we're going to segue into NFTs and bring on a couple more guests. So, Jose, from your viewpoint, especially, and I know you have the opportunity to work a lot with college students and a different demographic than maybe someone who didn't grow up on the island. What are some of the things you're starting to see in blockchain and adoption across the island?
I'm really seeing strong interest from creatives seeking to get their products online, to offer what they have, offer the value they provide on the internet, and have the ability to retain some of that value for themselves. And it's really, I think it's taking the island by storm. I mean, I don't know if you guys have heard, but Ozuna launched his NFT on February, towards the end of February. He's a very famous Puerto Rican urban music artist. And he also launched a collaborative NFT with Alec Monopoly, who is also living on the island. And I'm just seeing, crypto grow, not just in Puerto Rico, but all around the world. And here particularly, I can appreciate it from a first-person view, so to speak.
I also
and if Azuna's got us not keeping Bad Bunny and Daddy Yankee far behind.
Let's do that. Let's get them somewhere where they need to be.
I agree.
I need to get caught up.
So one Puerto Rico based project that I'm an investor and advisor to is called Tradery Labs. Started by Boricuas. Michelangelo, who many of you know from his prior company. I first met him when I was a student at UPR Mayagüez, and I was Transform Group was a sponsor of the hackathon that they had there a few years ago. I also went and introduced him into some of the other groups like Partnership for Modern Puerto Rico when he was like 19 years old. Now I think he's 22, 23. And he started along with a couple of other Boricuas who actually one left the island and is coming back now from New York, where he's been working at the New York City Department of Health for 20 years. They programmed some really good algorithms, and it's basically created an algorithmic company that then also spun out an algorithmic hedge fund called Tradery Capital that I'm a partner in. And so that's an example of an Act 20 company that is primarily owned by Puerto Ricans born in Puerto Rico, and has also become a global product. The hedge fund is a Delaware corp, but the actual technology company behind it is a Puerto Rico Act 20 corp.
Actually, that's one of the things that I like, and I think, Luke, you're a perfect example of this, is in the decentralized world that we're moving into, especially with blockchain, which is decentralized by nature. It's not the same as you just have a company necessarily come here. Yes, that happens, but you have people working in 20 different countries on the same project, and you don't necessarily have a headquarters. And that's one of the things that I really like about this community as well, is you can go to one of the meetups or Crypto Monday or some other entrepreneur event, and you'll find maybe 10 or 15 people, all from solid, awesome projects right here. And and they don't have to have their whole headquarters even, but there's just a lot of talent, a lot of smart people. And I mean, Luke, I think, are you the only person who works with FIO on the island?
Currently, yeah. It's funny, just today, and two different people I talked to on the team, and of course they're shoveling snow, a lot of them in Denver right now. So they were saying, we should have a meetup in Puerto Rico. We should come and visit. It's so funny that I'm like, you didn't know that Casey just said that to me earlier today. Yeah, most of them work from all over the place. Also, the blockchain itself, is fully distributed. We have 30 plus different block producers from 20 something different countries. So that's the nature of blockchains, building these decentralized autonomous communities. But as you said, it's so fantastic that people will come to visit. They'll come to a meetup, they'll connect with the community, and they'll get so impassioned, so excited about what we're doing here, and just the energy of the smart people, like you said, just really fantastic smart people, that they'll eventually figure out a way to move here, or they'll figure out how way they can spend more time here. And the nice thing is that even while they're away, because of the nature of cryptocurrency and blockchain, everyone can participate from anywhere. It's kind of by default remote work everywhere. And based on the Act 60 program, previously Act 2022, the benefits for those who are exporting services from the island and bringing in revenue to the island is really phenomenal for this type of work. So if you're doing that remote kind of work, you're adding services through the blockchain, it perfectly fits the way things are structured here. And it's an amazing community, and it's fun when people come to visit. As Michael was saying recently, especially, like every week there's some new people that you can connect with. I had a great connection just recently, and it's so exciting to think like, oh yeah, that's why I'm here, because they get so excited, they're so amazed. You take them to Yunque, the rainforest, you take them to the beach, you have a good time, and it's just amazing, and it's a great reminder to why we moved here and why it's such a paradise to be a part of. Yeah,
and for me, it all comes back to community. I mean, everyone's so approachable. I mean, come to a meetup and for example, Michael, most people of your accomplishments over the years, honestly, are normally really snobby, and you can't really talk to them. and I have engraved in my mind from a couple of years ago, we did a Christmas event for Uncommon Entrepreneurs, and I just remember looking over and I see Michael sitting at one table, a very successful person in many different things, including in blockchain and cryptocurrencies. And then there was, I think, like a very timid college student, just a young girl, college student, sitting right there, but all at the same event, and people are interacting and everything. And I was just like, this is awesome. Just like seeing young kid, doesn't even know what they want to do, probably really scared to be around a lot of successful, awesome people, and also just having all those successful, awesome people be super approachable, as well as people who just came down versus people who grew up on the island. Just everyone, I think, who's here, or most people, I should say, just are awesome people in general. It's a unique.
Well, I think it's an ethos that we sort of model. I mean, obviously, some of us kind of perhaps acted that way before we moved here, but it's an easy thing to model from the Boricua people themselves, right? I mean, one thing that I noticed when I moved down here with my wife, and we moved down also with my wife at the time had both her mother and father in their 90s. Her father since passed, but her mother's still living here. She's going to be 94. We would go and, kind of wheel them across the street. They were living at Miramar Living. We also live in Miramar. Literally people that we did not know would run across the street to stop traffic for us. You don't see that in New York. You don't see that in Los Angeles. You don't see that in San Francisco. And so just the warmth of the Puerto Rican people themselves, now that we are Puerto Ricans, we want to sort of extend that same kindness and thoughtfulness and, spirit of giving back.
Yeah, it's good all around. So quick recap for those listening or those who maybe are tuning in late. Puerto Rico in and of itself is an awesome place, especially if you're into blockchain, cryptocurrencies, things like that. And some of the top reasons that we've talked about thus far are, and we just got finished, the people in the community. I think that's one of the most important. Anywhere you live, you definitely have it here. Events and groups that are both blockchain focused, as well as just general business, networking, entrepreneur, microgrids, solar, energy, renewables, all these awesome things, just innovation in general. Very strong innovation hub, building out technologies and infrastructure, 5G, all sorts of stuff across the island. Incentives, there's tax incentives for 0% capital gains for many who move down. There's also 4% tax, sometimes even less if you're a young entrepreneur, things like that, down to 2%, or sometimes just, I won't get into the details. You can talk to a lawyer about that. But very good tax incentives for anyone, whether you live on the island or are coming to the island, for your businesses, and just all around openness in general. So now we're going to move. So we mentioned NFTs. I'd love for Luke and Michael. We'll start with Luke, and then anything that maybe he doesn't hit Michael. Let's explain what a non-fungible token is, and then we're going to bring on two more guests who are newly working on NFT projects here on the island. So Luke, do you want to give us a little breakdown of what a non-fungible token is, and maybe your perspective of what the hype's about? And then Michael, I'm sure can give a little bit more.
A non-fungible token is essentially an asset with a unique digital signature. And that means that there's only one of that particular asset. So you can take, for example, anything, a piece of art, a baseball card, anything that you want, and you can represent it with a unique digital signature. The fungible part just means, like when I have a single dollar bill, it's the same as any other single dollar bill. But a non-fungible token means that this unique NFT is very different than any other NFT. It's one of a kind, one and only. So even if you have an issuance of a piece of art and you want to mint 10 versions of that, for example, each one of those 10 mintings, each one of those issuances of that NFT are going to be unique. And so there's a lot of excitement about this, because throughout the different art world and other situations, you have the potential for fraud. How do you know that those sneakers are the real, sneakers? How do you know that art piece is the real art piece? How do you know that handbag is the real handbag? And it can be very challenging to know that you're not being defrauded in some way. And with NFTs, you have a cryptographic signature that you can verifiably prove that the author and the owner of that item is the real deal and legitimate. And just as we have kind of had software eat the world in every other area of our lives, I think it's the same with the things that we value, the things that we care about, the things that we cherish. And the things that we put our time and attention into, such as art and our collections, if we can also have software participate in that environment, it enables us to have more liquidity if we want to trade out one piece of art for another piece of art, and allows us to have very interesting ideas too that are even beyond what people are thinking about. So a lot of people today are thinking NFTs, and they think maybe, art, mostly a digital art exclusively, but also maybe videos and audio. But what I'm also excited about is the potential to have these kind of sales of items in the real world that are connected to this digital space. So for example, the other day I was tweeting about, what if I went over a pothole and then I could voice text my phone and say, hey, fire off an NFT for that particular geolocation and put it in a marketplace. And then immediately someone could say, yeah, oh, I know, I hit that pothole too. I care about that. I'm going to buy that NFT. And you have an auction. And as soon as the NFT is purchased, the funds can be released to a decentralized autonomous community that has other people that validate the work done. And someone can go and repair that road in excellence and have other validators to make sure it was done correctly, and they can get paid. And you could start purchasing and selling these NFTs, and you can build a reputation for someone who's adding value to the community. And then other agencies and companies and organizations could even say, whoever owns these NFTs, it's all transparent on the blockchain, you could distribute other items of value. You could have special events and VIP events for those who've paid for the most potholes to be fixed, for example. There's just so many amazing ideas that people haven't even considered yet. Once we have this technology of being able to digitize anything in the real world or in the virtual world and have completely unique ownership of them. And again, with that whole experience, the challenge is the technology. It's very, very difficult. And one of the things we're thinking about is, human readable addresses for that instead of just, these long, crazy hashes. So we do understand that the technology is still a little bit difficult, but there are groups that are working on making it easier, because it really is important for artists and people that want to get involved to not be overrun by the complexities of the technology. It's kind of like the early days of the internet were a little bit confusing. And then you have things like HTTP, the World Wide Web, and web browsers kind of making it a little bit easier. But most people don't realize that was 10 years later. And so we're just now getting to that place where the usability layers and the different things can come into making it easier for everybody.
So Michael, from your viewpoint, what are you seeing in regards to NFTs that are interesting to you?
Well, it's right now the most explosive area of the blockchain, of cryptocurrency. Even beyond the fast, rapid growth of DeFi, NFTs are growing even faster. I mean, I spoke last year at the NFT NYC conference in February, and this is in pretty much the end of the bear market, and everybody was kind of doom and gloom in the Bitcoin space. I think the price was still just a couple of $1,000s per Bitcoin. It wasn't anywhere near 10 yet, and yet the NFT space was just like incredible energy, and all these records were being broken, which now sound really tiny. I mean, I think it was like a month where like $500,000 was sold in NFTs. I mean, last month there were $300 million sold in NFTs, and so it's just been exponential in its growth. And as Luke had mentioned, there's several different styles of NFTs. One is sort of this digital collectible. So that you have something that is an original piece of art that is only on the blockchain. And a record was set just recently for a single piece of digital art by an artist called Beepsy, who has several million followers on Instagram, who has just become a multimillionaire from NFTs. From one sale alone, he's actually had several. He took one picture a day for 5,000 days. He ended up selling them all off as NFTs, and then he had one NFT that captured all of the 5,000 in one sort of NFT, and it went for $69.7 million at Christie's auction house. So we may look back and say that's the top of the bubble, or we may look back and say that's just the beginning. The second thing, of course, is when you're able to take the real world and tokenize it and represent that as an NFT. I'm an advisor and an investor in a company which recently relocated from Colorado, from the Denver area to Dubai, although I've been talking to them about Puerto Rico as well. But right now, they're at least having their tokens out of Dubai because of some of the laws that they have down there. Again, regulations, right? Lead people to places halfway across the world. It's called IceCap. It's Eric Voorhees, who's one of the earliest people in Bitcoin as a serial entrepreneur. His father is an OG, so to speak, in the diamond industry. And so together, Eric and Jacques Voorhees created tokenized diamonds so that you could put them on an exchange. High-end The reason why you don't have gold and silver and diamonds on the same type of marketplaces is two of them are fungible commodities. An ounce of gold is an ounce of gold is an ounce of gold, but a diamond is not the same as another diamond. They're non-fungible items. And so by creating a marketplace for non-fungible tokens, all that meets certain criteria, and they've got the former CEO of the GIA, the big Diamond Grading Association, as their chairman, and they're really doing some interesting things. And I think it's just begun the types of things you can do with it in terms of being able to then use DeFi projects against those diamonds and all sorts of things. So as DeFi plus NFTs plus loyalty tokens and all these things that have developed over the last 5 years or so, come together, you're going to find that this is becoming one of the fastest growing parts of the global economy, period.
Yeah, there's so much. And we're about to hear from a couple real life examples. One of the things for me, like, I think I first started thinking about NFTs when CryptoKitties came out, and I thought it was stupid, quite frankly. I mean, I've played different video games that would interest me, but in general, I was like, yeah, whatever, and I didn't really give it much credence. But as I think about it more, and as the frenzy and the technology has progressed, I start to see a lot of opportunities.
And Dapper Labs, who created CryptoKitties, they just had a $250 million venture capital round at a $2 billion valuation, because they're also the same group that created NBA Top Shots, that sold I think $217 million of NFTs around NBA players having tokenized video moments. Yeah, it's just crazy. Although one of the things I love also with all this new technology, with blockchain, with whatever, at the moment we're talking about NFTs, is also how people get into it. Because people get into blockchain, the internet, new things at different times for different reasons. Sometimes I found like people get in, for example, many people get into blockchain just because they can get gains and they like trading and this and that, and that's all they care about, and they don't even know what the project is that they just put money into or a token they bought. And then there's people more like me who I'll fly out and meet a founder to see if I even like them or not before I get involved. Just I treat it differently, or I like the technology because I can pair it with my hardware. And now we've had join us Ernesto and Javier, who are here on the island as well, and they've recently got into doing some things with NFTs. And I just like to hear a little bit about how they heard about blockchain in the first place, what it interested them about it initially, and then what interested them about it now, and what are you working on? So let's start out with Ernesto, and then we'll move to Javier.
Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for having me. So I first got into crypto when a buddy of mine, I was in the RTC in college, and a buddy of mine pitched me a sketchy coin, and I got into it, and I got a little Ledger Nano, which I thought was really inefficient. So I decided to, working alongside my friend in our dorm, work on a wireless hardware wallet that didn't require like connecting the cables to it. And that, to build that, we had to kind of dive deep into the technology, into the technical aspect of crypto. And once you kind of like see that, the technical side, and you understand it, it was like, wow, this is pretty dope. And I haven't been able to find my way out of the rabbit hole since. So yeah.
Awesome. What are you? We'll follow up real quick. Are you working on anything blockchain related right now, or what's interesting you at this point?
So the same friend that I started, that introduced me to crypto, him and I are working on a kind of side project right now. We're really just into NFTs, but it kind of gave us an idea, and we're like working on the, we created a GitHub, created a repo, but nothing like official. But we're working on kind of being able to own NFTs without actually own them. So our previous startup was Homebase, and one of the things that we kind of ventured into at Homebase was that a lot of landlords were renting out properties, but they didn't actually own them. They owned them through a lease option, and they were just making money, profit from the spread on the lease option and what they were renting the property out for. And we back at home base, we started venturing into NFTs because we wanted to find a way to, for landlords to be able to liquidate lease contracts online by putting up an NFT of the contract. And then we would, as a company, secure it. But that didn't really work out because as a company, we would have to secure it and people would have to trust us to pay out the monthly rent to them. But yeah, so right now we're just working on NFT options. I mean, seeing if people can own NFTs without actually having to own them, rather own the rights to purchase those NFTs at a future date. So that's just a project right now. It's nothing, official yet. So we'll see how it works out.
But I love it. I mean, it's all the experimentation. I mean, that's a startup life anyways. I mean, there's all these things. Most of the time you're going to fail, honestly. You're going to fail, learn, and hopefully get back up again and eventually hit it or make sense of something. Javier, let's bring you on. Tell us a little bit about your company and how you've brought blockchain into that recently.
So yeah, I started Torre del Viejo 5 years ago, and it's been process because the initial idea was to create a brand that Puerto Ricans are proud of, they can look at and they can see and they can point to it with pride. So when I learned about NFTs was a couple months ago, and I saw the opportunities because, for example, for us, we have a hierarchy system. We have people that buy shirts because people like them, or they've been buying shirts since the beginning and they have a collection. Therefore, they go up in the hierarchy. So
just to clarify real quick. And Torre del Viejo is a clothing line, correct? And a whole brand that's Puerto Rico focused and Puerto Rico born and bred, right?
That's correct. We're trying to get them.
Got it. Okay, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to clarify for everyone, like what type of company. So you said just within the last month or so, you started integrating NFT technology. How so? What does that look like? Give us a use case.
So now, since we have hierarchical system, we have people that are loyal patrons, maybe loyal patron level 2, they are barons level 3. We wanted to include certain type of perks per level of hierarchy. So I saw these as an ID, as bragging rights, so to speak. So people that have been with the company for years are granted an NFT, or when they break a threshold with the company, they get an NFT, and they get certain perks through that NFT. Or we're doing redeemables now. Today was actually the day that we managed to embed the marketplace with the company's website. And people can see the actual NFTs in our homepage. They don't have to bounce off. So we're doing redeemables too. We're doing collectibles because we asked most of the people that buy from the company, and they love the history, the story. Because people that buy it mostly know it from me because they know that my work ethic and how I develop the certain items. So because of that, we're thinking of making NFTs about the prototypes that got us to where we are. And one that we just came up with was we figured that because the world is moving into a more reusable space, fast fashion is not sustainable. It truly isn't possible in the long run. And we want to lead that charge into reusables. We were thinking of using NFTs as a tracker for those types of clothing. So people would buy the clothing, get the NFT, and they would send it back to us or switch it or resell it. They would sell the NFTs, so you have a history of that piece of clothing being progressively sold forward or given forward, or somebody has it via the ownership history. So that would promote more reusable clothing rather than throwing it away.
Yeah, no, I love that. Have any of you others on this call heard of interesting or maybe out of the box projects or uses, either for NFTs or just blockchain in general, that you didn't think about before in recent memory?
I'd say one of the more innovative companies that I've been working with has been Telos, Telos. It's one of the larger sort of spinouts of using EOSIO software. And one thing that they did to sort of get beyond kind of the bootstrap mode that they started in was to sell the rights to future blocks that the block producers will produce and put them into an NFT and sell them as what they were calling T-bonds. And so you had the ability to go and have a block that gets produced a year from now, and it would go and give it to you at today's price, plus a discount, plus the amount of staking that would be generated during that particular period. So in other words, they would discount the price to reflect what the normal staking would be if that token was existing now, and that was very successful. They sold 8 or 10 Bitcoins worth of T-bonds, and the innovation also led to a real big upsurge in the price of their token, which they've been discounting it from I think 4.2 cents to like 3.8 cents, depending on the length of the bond, and not a real bond, but sort of a virtual bond. And the price went soaring up to almost 40 cents within a month of this happening. So I think that there might be some ways that, for example, NFTs could be used as a similar model. If there's an artist who has a history of production, just like you have wine futures, and you get the artwork, you get the wine after it's made. Perhaps an artist who's very prolific can go and pre-sell their art. You'd have a future toward the first NFT that's produced. Obviously, you have to take a chance that he doesn't die or run away or something like that, but it's a young artist, you're paying a discount for that, just like there's obviously a chance in wine futures, which are the original version of not being considered a security, because you get the bottle of wine, you don't get dividend on the wine. So as opposed to the Howie Fruit Company was a dividend on an orange crop because oranges rot and wine appreciates. So there's a lot of different models that one can do, combining things that have been done with things in the future. And it's a very exciting time.
I know that something I'd love to see NFTs being used for is certificates, university certificates in the academia. That is not necessarily a monetary use. And even translations, it's really about, you can just about put anything there. It's like a blank piece of paper.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like whenever you say prove you have a Harvard degree, it's like, well, I have an NFT, and it's pinned to my profile.
Yeah, for sure.
One thing I'm very interested in related to that kind of idea of certifications or any type of proof of ownership is also proof of identity. And there's a lot of very interesting ideas. Like I know Reuven Heck from Casper Labs and the Identity Foundation has moved here recently. Of course, there's others as well that have worked on very well-known projects that are working on identity solutions here. I think they prefer to stay anonymous, but you could check out like keychain.org and some other similar projects that are working on identity and thinking about how, if we can own ourselves as an NFT, basically, how does that interact with how we talk amongst governments and municipalities and all the other groups of people that we interact with, and doing that in such a way that becomes a self-sovereign identity that isn't controlled by corporations or governments. And these are the projects that I'm really excited about. And it's really a funny thing to think about. You yourself is an NFT, essentially. You are this completely unique individual. And as the world gets eaten again by software, as we become more digitized in the way we interact with each other, it's inevitable that we're going to start tokenizing our own interactions. And so it's going to be very, very interesting to see, where does that spring up from? And I'm very excited with the number of people that are working on that particular issue here in Puerto Rico.
Well,
Awesome.
and also NFTs for passports, right? Everybody's talking about who will be the first countries to really onboard digital currency, and there's a number of ones working on it. But digital passports as an NFT would be great, because how many times when you sign up for things, you have to show your passport, show yourself holding the passport, show your latest utility bill. If you got the NFT as the passport, and then all you can do is get an NFT, I guess, of your utility bill, or there they seem to like faxes of it.
There we go.
Sounds cool.
All right, so
and again, faxes can be faked, and NFTs can't.
That's true. So we're pretty much out of time. I'd love to keep going. We could talk forever, but hopefully this is a good teaser for everyone listening. Come to Puerto Rico, join us, meet up with us. I'm sure each and every one of us would be happy to sit down or chat with you at one of the many events that go on, blockchain focus or otherwise. Thank you again. And one last fire round really fast, not necessarily related to blockchain, is I want each of you to tell us one thing that you love about living in Puerto Rico to help entice all the people watching to come down and at least visit and maybe even join us.
All right, so you alluded to it earlier. My favorite part of living in Puerto Rico, honestly, is just being able to be around so many great people that are creative, that are successful, and that are honestly, you can just sit down and have a talk with them, over coffee, over whatever you want to drink, and it's really magical. And the sunsets. Don't forget about the sunsets.
There we go.
I love the weather, no doubt. Operating on island time is pretty awesome because everything kind of passes by really slowly rather than I've lived in the States. So in the States, the day would pass by so fast, and here it's really slow and you can take your time and yeah.
The variety. San Juan is not only Puerto Rico, the more north you go, the more entrepreneurish, but the more southwest, the more creative people are, the more they move across this business landscape. It's the variety in Puerto Rico. It's astounding.
Yeah, I was kind of taken with Jose talking about magical. I would say I've lived in a number of sort of societies that were magical, and at that moment in time, you always wonder what it was like living in Paris when Picasso was there, or New York during the Roaring '20s. I think that New York during the .com era was pretty magical. A lot of things happened very fast there. Same thing with San Francisco. I remember when Santa Monica became Silicon Beach, sort of in the mid 2000s decade, and that had a ton of people pouring in from Silicon Valley going to Southern California. They all kind of coalesced. I think at one point they had 700 or 800 startups in about a 20-block area where I had my office on the 3rd Street Promenade. Las Vegas, when I first moved there was no tech going on, and then the late Tony Hsieh, when he moved Zappos down there and then started funding companies through the Downtown Project, that really got an amazing consortium of, really early entrepreneurs that moved there to start their startups, to be around like-minded people. And I see that in Puerto Rico right now. I see it's sort of a mix of, San Francisco and New York on the senior talent side, and Silicon Beach and Las Vegas, when it was, kind of during the early Tony Hsieh Vegas startup era on the sort of young entrepreneur side. And it's both in one, and it's very exciting.
But I would agree that the warmth, not just of the weather, especially the weather, but not just the weather, but also the people. There's just such a warmth here on the island. My wife and I constantly comment about how we love not being cold anymore, no matter what the season is of the year, and the people as well. We've had just great relationships and connections with people that are always so inviting and always so helpful. And so it's just the warmth of the people, the warmth of the island. We really, really appreciated that.
There we go. So to wrap it up, thanks everyone. I love the ecosystem, all the things you guys said, the innovation that's going on here. It's just top notch. So thanks everyone. Thanks for joining us, each and one of you, for this discussion. Thanks for watching. Anyone who's watching, you can find us on all social, come to our website, or come track down one of us and talk to us. So hope to see you sometime and talk to you later. Thanks everyone.